tone for the rest of the day. So if you're still feeling sleepy, shake it off.
Alright, so the figures we have for today's showcase are 2 Genshin figures. So on my left side we have Keqing Driving Thunder version 1/7 scale. And then on my right side we have Ganyu's Plenilune Gaze version. I believe that's how you say that word. Both figures are manufactured by Apex Toys. They've been slowly rising to the top of my favorite figure manufacturers. So how do these stack up? Well, let's get into the prices. So for both of these figures, they're under the 20k yen threshold, which is pretty good, especially right now in today's current market, because some manufacturers are getting a little bit crazy with their pricing. Ganyu comes in at a very good price of around 14,000 yen, although that was initial pre-order price, but now since it's so close to release date, they bumped it up slightly to 15k yen, which is still not bad. Keqing over here, she's around 18,000 yen, which is respectable, because she does look a little bit more dynamic than Ganyu's. Alright, so first up, let's start off the boxes. So Ganyu's box is slim in form factor. It's not going to take up a lot of space, so if you're a person who's running low on space, the box is not that big. I guess Apex took a little bit of inspiration from Alter, because Alter is the only manufacturer that does the clear, transparent plastic boxes. And as plain as you might think this looks, I think it does look pretty clean, especially for this figure. You don't need to go for a crazy box when the figure is this simple. It's got a little golden Cairo symbol on the front and also on the top, a nice shade of blue. One thing I just noticed just now is that the plastic here actually has somewhat of a frosted ice look when you go to the bottom. So it's kind of like a gradient. The more you go from the top to the bottom, the more frosted it is, which is nice because she is a Cairo character, so it really matches her whole theme. On the back of the box, of course, you do get some images of the figure, and that is pretty much it for the box. Keqing's box reminds me heavily of Apex's box that they did for Lapland from Arknights, which was also a really good figure, by the way. So on the front of the box here, we have a nice render of the figure herself. You got some gold text, big Genshin Impact logo. You got a couple of little flower petals, and just a really nice color of purple. My favorite parts of the box are definitely the sides. So on one side, you do have another render of the figure, but it's just completely colored out in this nice purple gradient. Of course, you have Keqing. And on the other side, it's pretty much the same thing, but instead of Keqing, you have the electro symbol, which is pretty dope. And yeah, on the back of the box, just more pictures of the figure. So inside the boxes, in terms of accessories, so for Ganyu's, it's relatively simple. You have the base itself, which is a very nice circular light blue gradient white colored base with a couple of like little clouds that just make the base feel a little bit more cooler. You get Ganyu herself, and then you get her little Cairo pearl that she summons, which is nice. And then you also get a little peg. Now you might be wondering why you would get this extra piece, because on the base it actually has the peg itself, and you might be thinking, well, maybe it's a little extra piece just in case the peg on the base breaks off. But no, it actually serves a little bit more of a secret purpose, which we will get into a little bit later. For Keqing, she comes in 2 sets of blister packaging, so one set pretty much houses the base and its components. The base itself is a circular black plastic, pretty glossy, and it has a couple of electro effects going on. And then this also houses her twin tails. And then in the other blister packaging, you have Keqing herself and the 2 swords. So you get one normal variant and then one with like just covered in electro. I believe the sword itself is actually based off of Lion's Roar from in-game, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, in terms of assembly, they are both easy to assemble. Ganyu's, you just have the one peg on the base. You put the figure on it, then the Cairo ball goes in between her hands. Initially, I tried to put in the ball straight into her hands, push the peg in all the way, which obviously wouldn't work because if you couldn't tell, the peg is super long while her hand is actually only this thick, so obviously it wouldn't fit in all the way. So I was wondering how the heck is this actually supposed to work? You're actually supposed to put it in at an angle. That way the pearl just kind of gently falls in the tips of her fingers. And then you can't really see the peg at this angle. So good idea, Apex. I'm a little bit dumb though, so I tried to do it the other way, which did not work out very well. And also, I don't know how I would have gotten it to work anyways, because it would have just been in the middle of her hands instead of at the end of her tips, so it would have looked really awkward. For KenKen, she has one middle peg on her foot that goes directly into the big electro effect, which leaves me to wonder if this is going to have any leaning issues over time, which I don't really think so, because if I take a look at the stability of this figure, she actually doesn't wobble around a lot. I think Apex did a wonderful job on the weight distribution for this particular figure, because look at this. Pretty good. While as Ganyu over here, she actually wobbles more than KenKen, which I guess is a good thing for KenKen, because that just means you know this is a very solidly built figure. And then the twin tails go on KenKen's head, which by the way, I would probably recommend putting the twin tails on KenKen before you put it on the figure. I just find it would have been easier that way. And after you do that, you have to get the sword in, which was a little bit tricky. So on her fingertips, she does have a little peg that is supposed to go into the side hilt of the sword, because there's also a peg hole there. So initially when I put it together, I was like, okay, I'm finished. But then I realized after like a really quick second that the sword was sticking upward. And then in the original promotional photos, the sword was obviously not sticking upward. It's going downward at an angle. So I was like, okay, this is completely wrong. So to get into the horizontal position, you do kind of have to move her shoulder a little bit. The sword is going to kind of brush up against it, if only for a second, so just so you can get the positioning, and then you can put it in and it fits pretty well. Now the only problem with this is that the sword positioning is slightly different compared to the actual promo photos, because on the promo photos the sword is actually at an angle, while most users, at least from what I've searched up on the internet, have the sword exactly horizontally parallel, because that's kind of how it fits in her hand. That is a little bit of a nitpick for me. The sword positioning doesn't exactly match the promo photos. Now for me, I was like, screw that, I'll try to match it as close as possible. So I've got it into a position where she's holding it very well, but the finger on her peg isn't really in the hole, and she's just holding it through pure friction. I think it looks better this way. And obviously in the promotional photos, that's how it's supposed to be. For overall, I think the sculpt is fantastic. Her outfit looks stellar. Paint job on the leggings is wonderful. The base is pretty cool. The pose is very dynamic. It's somewhat based off of her splash art, not exactly the same. I think the differences from the final version compared to the promos is her head positioning might be slightly more tilted downwards, and like the direction her eyes are looking aren't exactly as straight on as the promo photos, and her arm positioning is a little bit more lower, resulting in the sword not going exactly at the correct angle that they advertised. So yeah, that's probably just one nitpick for me. Aside from that, it's a wonderful figure. So for 18,000 yen, I think KenKen is a wonderful pickup. You should definitely pick it up if you're a huge KenKen fan. Now, when it comes to Ganyu's figure, I think she's an incredibly beautiful figure, right? Very simplistic, and I know some people kind of find it a little bit bland because she's just kind of just standing there in a very simple pose. The expression is sort of lifeless. I think it's very gentle and very nice, but you know, that's just me. Some people might be thinking that, you know, at least for a 5-star character, they should have done a little bit more with her. But I think on just the quality of the figure herself, face sculpt is wonderful. I love the paint job on her hair. It's not a completely flat color of blue, but they added a little bit of white just to give it a nice shade. I think the paint job on her bodysuit is really nice as well, especially on the tights. The overall outfit with the white and the blue, just it's got a really nice contrast, and I think it looks nice. But the pose for this figure, I believe, is based off of her character card, and they matched it up pretty well. But there is a positive to being so simple, because when it's really simple, she can be put onto someone else's base. So before I mentioned how Ganyu comes with an extra peg. Now this is supposed to be a little bit of an Easter egg, because Ganyu is able to be put on Ningguang's figure, which is the Ningguang figure. If you haven't actually seen that video, you should go check it out. But yeah, when I first did the Ningguang video, a lot of people commented that Ganyu was going to be able to be put on Ningguang's base. For me, I needed some like evidence and proof for that. I asked a lot of people for images, but no one could actually provide some. I searched them up on the internet, couldn't find anything, and that's because, well, it's supposed to be an Easter egg secret, right? So obviously they're not going to advertise it, even though I figured if Apex did advertise it, they would have gotten a lot more sales for both figures, because if you get one of these and you know that it goes on to another one, then you feel a little bit more inclined to get the other one as well, even though it's like super expensive. So we're actually going to test this out right now and put Ganyu on Ningguang's base. So here is Ningguang's figure. Like I said before, if you haven't watched that video, you should probably go check it out, because I think it's super dope. On Ningguang's base, there's actually a really big pile of leaves that is actually detachable, and it leaves pretty much the perfect sized peg holes that, funnily enough, match Ganyu's peg here. So we just attach this on like that, and then take Ganyu off her base, the peg here, And there you have it. She fits wonderfully well, which is great because now I don't have to waste an extra space for Ganyu because I can just add her to Ningguang's base. This just made the Ningguang figure even better for me. If you have the Ningguang figure and you want a slightly expensive accessory, get the Ganyu figure. Or vice versa, if you want the Ganyu figure and you also want a really expensive accessory, you can get the Ningguang figure for like 30,000 yen. So yeah, I think this was really nice of Apex just to be able to include this. This looks super dope. So yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. So if you're into Genshin Impact and you're new to figure collecting, you want to start buying figures, I wholly recommend the figures from Apex. Like, these are fantastic figures, especially for the prices. Maybe not Ningguang. Well, I mean, I think Ningguang's an absolute steal even at 30,000 yen, which is still super expensive. But like, just look at how much stuff you get with this figure. It's kind of crazy. That's pretty much it for this video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Now, if you excuse me, I have to open up Marine from Hololive. So I'll catch you guys later. Peace. Huge thanks to Seswat, Beast, Rauku, Hentia, Wandering Kitsune, ZZZ, Higeki, Rev, OP Magician, Digital Next, Ishutaru, Ultra Blue, Type Wild, Zeta, and Peach Boy. You guys make these videos possible.